Right, so for this we're going to make a book cover. So this is a book cover that's been made with actual proper binding cloth. And you'll see the first sheet actually gets stuck to conceal the fabric edges of the book cover, and that makes my initial sheet. And I've chosen to put an image on there, but you don't have to. It could just be a clean sheet, or it could have some words on it, a title or something. This is another simple book cover made with some African fabric, which is sort of cotton based. It's quite nice because your book can sit like that and it's protected. So for this you need your concertina book, probably a hinged one or one that's made out of A3 at least, or A2, so you've got enough to put some pages onto your covers. You'll need 2 bits of cardboard, and I've used the back of a sketchbook, which is ideal. You can get book binding board through a book binding supplier. And it's really important, but you can just use cardboard from a box, but the firmer the better. And you cut it, allowing at least 3 millimeters. I've got 5 millimeters around the edge. 5 millimeters is probably better. So that book sits like that. So you'll need 2 of those. And then you need some fabric or some paper, wrapping paper, handmade paper, silk, whatever works for you. And you need at least sort of 1 inch or 2.5 centimetre excess around the edges. And again, you'll need two pieces of that. Now, because the glue actually goes through this fabric, I'm going to protect my surface with a poly wallet, but if you've got a wipeable surface, a vinyl surface, or something that won't adhere, what you don't want is for your paper to stick to your cloth, because the glue is going to seep through initially. And obviously the plastic will just peel off easily. So first of all, you take your board, and we're going to use PVA glue, simple glue brush, and we're going to stipple glue reasonably quickly, because you don't want your glue drying at one end of the board. Right, then I would put that to one side. Get your fabric, make sure you see it's the inside of the fabric that you're going to stick down to. I'm just going to cut that loose thread out of the way. And you might want to iron your cloth first. I haven't ironed this cloth. And we're going to put that in the middle. And I'm just going to flatten that. Well, the next bit is quite important. You're going to cut the corners off like that, but here you're going to leave about 3 millimeters of space. So you're not going to cut it close to the corner of the board. You're going to cut it about 3 millimeters away from the corner of the board. If I had a lighter cloth, I might actually draw that line on. And you can see here that because that glue is seeping through, it's sticking to my paper, so I'm just going to get that plastic there again. You'd probably let this dry first, but just for sakes of showing you, I don't know why this is not wanting to cut. You can see I've left that edge there. My scissors are deciding to not behave themselves for some reason. If you had a book binding cloth, you could actually draw on the back of it and draw your board edge and draw these lines and cut them. But because this is just too dark for me to draw and see the lines I've drawn on, and it's quite thin cotton, there's no point in me doing that. Right, so then, keeping it on your plastic or your vinyl cloth, having a soapy cloth to hand, a warm cloth to hand, wet, is useful, just in case you have to wipe any spills up. So we're going to glue the top first, again using that kind of stippling action and making sure that you glue right up to the edge of the board. You're then going to pull your cloth, quite sort of stretching it to the edge. And with these bits here, you just put your fingernail in and press those corners down. You might need a little bit of glue to help hold it. Press those corners in. There we go. And the reason I've cut this quite close to gluing it is because this fabric frays a lot, very easily. So I want to catch it with the glue before it frays. Okay, so, oh, I've done that wrong. You actually need to glue the opposite side next. Make sure you glue all the way to the edges, including this edge here and here, so you can pinch those sides in. Again, stretching that quite tightly. Not so tightly that it bends your board, but just so that it makes a nice edge around the board. And remember to pinch those corners in, which I do with my fingernail. Then we glue the sides. One side at a time. And the other side. I'm just re-pinching these corners in because I want them to hold. They don't seem to want to. There we go, and then we have one book end. Don't worry if you can see glue here because that's all going to dry and see through. Got our corners nicely pinched in. There we go, and just set that aside to dry, and then keep that on a piece of plastic to dry. And turn that plastic over and repeat. I'm just going to cut these stray edges away. You don't want any loose threads unless you're going for that kind of loose thread effect, which some artists do. Making sure you've got the inside of the fabric facing up, and we're going to glue that board, stippling quite quickly. I do it from the top to the bottom so I make sure it's all covered. So you could draw around your board and pre-cut your edges. Right, making sure I've got the inside of my cloth face up, and I'm putting this down in the middle of my board. But I'm not pre-cutting this cloth because, as you can see, it's just fraying by the second. So then piece of paper, just make sure that's all. I'm going to cut those corners off. Remember, we're going to allow about 3mm clear for those corners. My scissors have decided to go blunt on me. Hopefully you've got sharper dressmaking scissors. So you wouldn't cut an edge like that, but it's because my scissors are doing naughty things. The most important thing is to get those at the corners, allowing those extra 3mm, which helps us make a nice corner covering. So we're going to do the top edge first. Making sure there's enough glue at those corners. Pull that in, pinch those corners down. Then the bottom. Stretch that across the edge of the board so you get a nice edge. Pinching those sides down, I haven't quite put enough glue in. Then we'll do the side. You see how those edges have popped up? I'm just going to just depends on the fabric that you have really. This is fraying, it's being a bit naughty, but just squidge those down. Getting a nice edge. And then the opposite side. I'm pushing those corners down. And then I'm going to put that to one side to dry. I'm going to get another plastic sheet to protect my book. So I'm going to work with these. Usually you'd let the whole thing dry, but I'm going to work with these as they are just to show you. So effectively I'm going to stick my book down here. So in order to do that, I'm going to glue the whole of this side. So to protect that, I'm going to put one sheet underneath and one sheet to give me my edge. And I'm going to glue that. Now I just need to get a little bit more glue. So this is just ordinary PVA, or sometimes it's called school glue. So that is going to go on the inside of my book cover.